Okay, I'm back, been through the scrap pile. I already took my Dremel tool and ground off the two little pegs that held this worm gear in place. And so that took that off of there. I searched through the scrap pile. I found an old mandolin set of tuners that are also, they have the same square pegs and the gearing looks about the same. There's no way to know though until I actually take this one off and put it on there. The tuning, the peg itself or the key is much smaller, but everything else is about the same. So I'm going to see what I can do with this first. We'll grind off this one. Well, that might be enough grinding. Can't really tell for sure to get it off of there. Basically, you just wiggle it back and forth till it pops out. And it looks like it might come. Of course, it won't ever come easy. You know, that would be against the law. So maybe I can force it up with the screwdriver here. Well, not so much as you can tell. No, might have to do a little more grinding or just punch it out with a punch. I think I'll try the punch idea. It's got a little tiny vise here. Turn the camera where you can see it a little bit. Little tiny vise. Got that sitting in the vise. And guess I'll have to put the glasses back on again. I don't like wearing these things, but I need them for this close-up stuff anymore. See if I can drive that out of there. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Okay. Well, except that when I drove the second one out, it was on the end and it fell off. Now I gotta find it on the floor. Oh, I found it. Got lucky. Every once in a while you get lucky. So that's what happened. This little piece fell off the end. The only thing that holds them on there is going through that hole. So now I'm going to see if I can make that fit in these other two holes and see if it's going to work. And the answer is maybe. Doesn't want to go. I think I'm going to take a little tiny file and try to make it slightly smaller than it is. Go around it here on the edges and knock off the burr some more. Again, I fall back to my saying, if it were easy, monkeys could do it. And I bet you won't see a single monkey trying to do this. Alright, well, maybe that's better. See if that'll go through the hole. The answer is almost. Yeah, I think it will. Maybe I can squeeze it together through the hole with the pliers. Almost. I think I did. I think it's there. Now the trick is, can I get the worm gear to line up with the post now that it's on there? Yes, I can. I did. Now can I get the other little piece to go back on this other end through the hole and on the end? Not before I file it off too, and I'm going to put it in the vise to file it since it's loose. Okay. Did that. Now will it go through here and be cooperative, or will it give me a problem? And it looks like it's going to go through there. Ah, sometimes you get lucky. Rarely, but sometimes you do. Now, realizing that this button is much smaller than the other buttons, you can see that clearly, that this button is much smaller than that button. But if you look at it, it looks pretty much original as far as the post and all that goes, and it just so happens that it looks like it's going to turn it just fine. If you can get a whole revolution out of it without it binding up, it's going to work. And I believe we've got a whole revolution out of it without it binding up. Now, I do see one other little problem, minor problem. The post on this one, this post is smaller than this post a little bit. But, you know, you can't have everything when you're going through a scrap box. So I think we got it as good as we're going to get it. Now the question is, can I get that to solder so that it'll work? And I think I can. I've done this before. I'm going to take the Dremel tool and clean this up on the inside here. That looks pretty darn good. It's real shiny brass. So now I'm going to hold that right there, just lay it there, and I'm actually going to put a little clamp on this, just enough to hold it down, 2 little clamps, and then see if I can solder that. My table's kind of thick right here, so I got my biggest small clamp that I have. I don't know if this is going to be big enough to go through. Yep, it is. Hey, you get lucky once in a while. Hey, I got lucky twice on this. I'm beginning to think it's going to snow, or something like that. Very good, very good, very good. You can't get much luckier than that on something like this so far. Now if it solders, we're good to go mechanically at least. We may not be good to go aesthetically, but mechanically. I'm going to take this brush and clean that whole area off. It's a brass brush. Now I'll go get the soldering kit. So for you purist machinists out there, this might not be the right way to do this. But it always works for me, or at least it always has worked for me. Now that I'm on camera, we'll see. I'm cleaning my solder off here. I've just got this last little piece of this roll of solder. This is a rosin core solder. It's really for electric. I realize that, so you don't have to send me any hate mail on that. But it seems to work pretty good on this kind of stuff because it's a brass, and it seems to work pretty well. At least I've done it several times in the past and it's worked, so I'm just going to hope it will this time. And I'm using an electric soldering gun because flame with those buttons and all that stuff would not be a good idea. Looks like it's working perfectly. That looks great. I hope the other side does the same. Perfect. Wonderful. Since it's only literally being held by the very end of that lug now, that's not much, and I realize that, but I'm hoping it's enough. I dimpled this out on the inside so that I had a dish of solder there, and I'm going to take a small file and clean that up and get rid of most of that solder so that it's fairly flat, at least flat, not billowing up here. that was any better, I'd probably have to pay entertainment tax. And I don't like paying entertainment tax. I think it worked. Looks like that's working. You can see on the inside there how I soldered it. Seems to be okay. Like I said, I dished that out so that that solder had a place to well up there, pool up. And that seems very good. Seems very solid. Seems just exactly like the others as far as that goes. 100% better than it was when it got here, I can tell you that. So now I'm just going to put that back on for now, and so I don't lose any parts and things. It was missing a screw already, so one screw is already missing. I'll have to find me a matching screw, and I'm pretty sure I've got plenty of those laying around. And that one's the one that was missing because that hole is roached out. We're going to have to put some toothpick fillers in there and some glue and fill that hole back up. Here's a box full of old screws, and I'll see if I've got one laying loose in here that matches the head of this pretty good. And that one does. It's a little shinier, but it looks very much like the same screw. So I'm going to call that good enough. Nobody gets down and compares screws that close. Now I'm going to take a little bit of glue, put it on the end of this. Actually, it's easier if I just put it on some paper. And put a little glue on the end of that, stick it down in this hole like that, break it off, stick a little more glue on the end of there again, stick it down in that hole, and break it off again, and do that on the other end too. Put it down in there, break it off, put it down in there, and break it off. And now just put these screws back in. Somebody say, well, that's going to glue your screw in there. So far I've never had a problem with that. It's always come right out. So which is one more screw than it had when it got here. So that's in good shape now. This turns a little bit smaller than the other ones. It looks pretty similar to the other ones, other than it's just a lot smaller. Like I said, you can't have everything when you're rooting through a scrap pile. But that's at least functional now, where it wasn't functional before.